Good morning,
Good
Rabbi.
morning.
We're learning Mishna Nazir, Perek Gimel, Chapter 3, Mishnah Vav, Mishnah 6. Okay. Mi Shanazar Naziris Harbe, somebody who took upon himself a lot of Naziris, which here means a Naziris longer than 30 days. Now, this person is not in Eretz Yisrael. This person is in Chutz La'aretz. And in Chutz La'aretz, let me read to you the introduction here. The rabbis decreed that all lands outside of Eretz Yisrael are considered tamei, and a person who is standing on such lands or touches soil from them becomes tamei as if he touched a corpse. This is known as Tumas Eretz Ha'amim, the Tumah of the land of the nations. The reason why they decree this, they bring it here in the notes. The rabbis decree this because of the practice of the non-Jewish nations to bury their dead in unmarked graves anywhere, not just in cemeteries. Therefore, any land outside of Eretz Yisrael might have corpses or parts of corpses buried in it. And therefore, although according to Torah law, they're not this tamei, you don't tamei from that, because if you don't know that there's a corpse there, you don't have to assume that there is one there. But this was a decree from the Chachamim to say that anywhere outside of Eretz Yisrael, because of this issue, it's considered tamei to be there, to touch the dirt from there. All right. So this person who we're talking about now, so back here, accordingly, if a person who is outside Eretz Yisrael accepts upon himself a term of Naziris, he cannot fulfill his Naziris obligation there. Why? Because it's like he's standing in a cemetery, like yesterday. He's automatically becoming tamei when he makes himself a Nazir. And therefore, actually, what he really needs to do is, rather, they bring down here again the notes, he is obligated to travel to Eretz Yisrael immediately, purify himself from his tumah, and observe his term of Naziris in Eretz Yisrael. He can't stay. The Chachamim said, you can't stay here. You have Naziris to do, and you can't do it in this kind of under these conditions. And therefore, you have to go to Eretz Yisrael right away. Okay, now, the Mishnah teaches the law for someone who observed his entire term of Naziris outside Eretz Yisrael and only then came to Eretz Yisrael. This person was supposed to go to Eretz Yisrael right away, but he didn't. He stuck around, and then he went to Eretz Yisrael. So that's what it means when it says, Mi Shanazar Naziris Harbe. He took about himself a long term of Naziris, meaning more than 30 days. And whatever the amount of time that he took about himself, he completed it. And then afterwards he came to Eretz Yisrael. So he kept his entire term of Naziris outside of Eretz Yisrael, and then he came to Eretz Yisrael. Okay? So now that he comes to Eretz Yisrael, what is he supposed to do? The assumption now, it's very clear that he's got to go ahead and I shouldn't say very clear, but the Chachamim are basically going to say that this person who kept his Naziris in a state of Tumah, he's got to do it over. He's got to do something over. He's got to make up for the fact that he kept his Naziris in a place of Tumah. So now, let me read here again from the notes. Instead of fulfilling the rabbinic requirement to go to Eretz Yisrael and observe his term of Naziris there, he observed the entire term outside Eretz Yisrael. The rabbis therefore penalized him and required him to observe his Naziris again in Eretz Yisrael after his purification. In essence, according to Torah law, did he fulfill his obligation outside of Eretz Yisrael? He did. Because according to Torah law, he is not tamei. He's not tamei. However, the Chachamim said you were supposed to come to Eretz Yisrael to do it. And being that you didn't do it in Eretz Yisrael, you've got to do it over again. The question is, how much? So Beis Shammai oimrim nazar shloshim yoim. Beis Shammai say, you know how long he has to be a nazar for? 30 days. Even though the original Naziris was longer than 30 days, according to Beis Shammai, all you got to do is 30 days. Since the Tumah of the land of the nation is only rabbinic Tumah, he has fulfilled his biblical obligation when he observed his term of Naziris outside Eretz Yisrael. According to Beis Shammai, therefore, we treat him leniently and require that he repeat his Naziris for only a standard 30-day term, even though his original vow was for longer. Okay, so since really min adin, he really did fulfill his Naziris, and if remember from yesterday, being in a cemetery, just going into a cemetery does not cause you to forfeit your Naziris. So you see, even if he would have gone into a 100% cemetery, even if he tamei midaraisa, he wouldn't have to forfeit all the naziris that he did. So here, in this case of the Eretz Ha'amim, being that according to Torah law, he actually did fulfill his naziris, so Beis Shammai say the penalty that the Chachamim put on this person is only for 30 days. Beis Hillel say Nazir Batchila. No, he's got to go all over again. He's got to start all over again. When the Chachamim penalized him that he has to repeat, that he has to do something here in Eretz Yisrael in the state of Tahara, it's the whole thing over. He did his Naziris in Eretz Ha'amim. He shouldn't have done it there. When he comes to Eretz Yisrael, he purifies himself. He's got to keep over the entire Naziris that he was supposed to do outside of Eretz Yisrael. Now the Mishnah relates an incident where this took place. Mishna behilni hamalka. There was a queen whose name was Hilni. In English, they call her Helene. And she was a queen somewhere outside of Eretz Yisrael, and she converted. And she was and she always listened to what the Chachamim told her. Now, in this case, Ma'aseh Hilni Amalka, the story took place with Hilni the queen. Her son went to war. And she said, if my son comes back from the war in peace, I'll be a Nazira for 7 years. Now she took upon herself 7 years of Naziris if her son comes back, comes back from war. All right. Uba b'na min ha-malchama. And her son came back. Now she was outside of Eretz Yisrael. She should have come back. She should have gone to Eretz Yisrael to do her Naziris, but she didn't. Voice Nazira Sheva Shonim. She was a Nazira for 7 years. They bring down here from the Tosfos Yantif. She always listened to the Chachamim. That's what she was known for. Why didn't she go to Eretz Yisrael? So they bring down here a possible reason for this is that the rabbis were not aware of her vow, and so could not instruct her to come to Eretz Yisrael. They didn't know, and she didn't know. No one was going to tell her what to do. Or she was forced to remain outside of Eretz Yisrael during those 7 years in order to properly rule her kingdom. She was in a situation where she couldn't go back. And at the end of the year, she kept those 7 years while outside of Eretz Yisrael. Also Eretz Yisrael. And then at the end of those 7 years, she went to Eretz Yisrael. Now what is she going to do? V'hayrua Beis Hillel, and Beis Hillel paskin for her. Beis Hillel ruled for her. Shetei Nazira oid sheva shanim acheres. She had to be Nazira for another 7 years. That's Beis Hillel's opinion. If you didn't keep it in Eretz Yisrael, when you come to Eretz Yisrael, you have to keep the whole thing over again. Now, listen to the rest of the story. Ubesoiv sheva shanim, and at the end of those second 7 years, guess what happened? Nitmei, she became Tamei. She became Tamei on the last day of the 7 years of her Naziris in Eretz Yisrael. So now she's got to deal with the fact that she became Tamei on the last day of her being a Nazir. And what's the halacha if you become Tamei on the last day of your Naziris? What's the halacha? You got to start all over again. The Nimsa Nazira Esrim v'achashana. She came up being a Nazira for 21 years. Now, in essence, we had this before. It was a machlekes tanoim as to whether if you become tamei on the last day of Naziris, do you forfeit everything or just have to do 30 days? Well, according to this, Beis Hillel held like the Tanakama that you have to start all over again. Omar Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda said, Lo ha'isa Nazira la'arba esrei shana. She was not a Nazira for 21 years, only for 14. Because Rabbi Yehuda is of the opinion that he also, Rabbi Eliezer, in the previous Mishnah, that somebody becomes Tamei on the final day, does not have to forfeit the whole thing, but only has to do 30 days. And therefore, in essence, all Hilni Hamalka had to do was, when she became Tamei on the last day of the 14th year, according to Rabbi Yehuda, all she had to do was 30 days. Now, when Rabbi Yehuda says she was only Nazira for 14 years. It was really 14 years and a month. But as the Bartenura points out, the point was, Rabbi Yehuda's point was to argue that it wasn't 21 years, it was 14 years, because we hold like Rebbe Lezer that says you don't have to do the whole thing over again, you only have to do a month. So he only mentioned the years because he's trying to say it wasn't 21 years, it was 14 years. He was talking about years. But actually, it was really 14 years and a month. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Where are we? Because I'm